I started making music when I was 8 years old. I always had music around me when I was a kid growing up.
It's all about creativity. It's just a big playground, you know. We're just having a really good time.
You can reach people and inspire people and, open up people's minds into the possibilities.
I like to be proud of my own songs. I want to make good records.
I'm trying to create a certain sonic universe, creating this kind of magic.
And this is our soundtrack to creativity.
It brings me great pleasure to bring back a very familiar face here at Camp the House Down Built. It is, of course, Max Vangeli. Max, my man, welcome back. How you keeping?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Just as a bit of a backstory, Max was actually one of the first ever artists I interviewed under the moniker of the House Down Built. So to have him back here 5 years down the line is pretty impressive. So welcome back, man. Can you believe it's been that long?
Oh man, it's been that long, huh?
Nonetheless, 5 years down the line, things are looking pretty good for you, if I may say so, my man. What's the general mood over at Camp Vangeli?
Yeah, it's been good, man. Just, it's still developing, just expanding sound and expanding my career and stuff. So it's been a great run.
Now, tell us a bit about your mindset as you were transferring over to 2014, because it seems fair to say that 2013 was something of a transitional year for you.
Things are definitely changing a lot. You could hear it, the sounds are evolving and a lot of crossing over in terms of genres, like with pop and more commercial vibe and stuff. So you just got to kind of figure out which direction to take it. But every year is different and you just got to kind of adapt and create something unique, So I try to just learn from the past and look into the future, I guess.
Now, yours has been a career of consistent evolution, and for the most part, you really peaked just before the wider industry did. Certainly the majority of the European talent pool we're seeing now before us. What do you believe has been the most exciting development in modern dance music within your career personally so far? And has it all been positive evolution to your mind?
I mean, it depends how you look at it. I try to keep it as consistent as possible for myself. It's definitely moving a lot faster. Everything is evolving, and there's so many kids that are making new stuff that it's kind of overwhelming. But it's about keeping up with the current sound, I guess, and trying to stay as relevant and ahead of the game as possible. But like I said, it's definitely, the wheels are turning a lot faster now, definitely, I'll tell you that much.
Now, your live presence has been a consistent part of the equation, and you've been holding the big festivals and the high-profile North American residencies alike. As the market for live dance music has expanded, has catering to the demand ever proven to be a tough balance for you, given there is this dual expectation for DJs and producers to deliver both on the floor and on the Beatport charts?
I'll be honest with you, I never really felt that pressure for myself because I kind of started out doing both at the same time. I was producing and DJing, so I was never really one of those guys that was thrown in there out of nowhere with one big record and just kind of had to learn with time. I did my time doing local shows and stuff, so I was definitely prepared for all of that. I mean, it is overwhelming a little bit now to do these huge festivals in front of thousands and thousands of people, especially now it's getting bigger and bigger. But I think at this point now in my career, I've done it so many times now that my priorities are a little bit at a different place. I get more nervous about figuring out how to do a certain record that I'm currently working on versus being nervous in front of doing a show here or there. I've done my fair share of all of that, so I kind of know it, and I know what to expect basically.
Of course, hot off the press, Grimm alongside Danny Ray marked the third instalment for Size Records of 2013, and of course a welcome return to the label from you. Given the notably sparing releases from you for 2013, what was the key driver behind this track, and where do you see it fitting compared to your previous cuts for the label?
Well, to answer your question about the releases, it was kind of, you don't really want to jump in the studio right after working so much time on an album. That was kind of like the reason why we stayed low, and our main focus was to tour the album basically. And in terms of this record, my main thing is that, since we're still doing a lot of really big, heavy shows, big festivals and stuff, the record's got to be strong, got to be hard, because now the kids, they want those songs to sound harder and harder. It's getting a bit ridiculous, So it's like, how much harder can it get? I've always been a fan of melodies and such. So I wanted to keep that element at least in the breakdown for the record. So, you know, it kept a very, very powerful melody and stuff like that. So kind of just combining the two elements to make sure that it works for, you know, clubs and festivals and shit.
Speaking of albums, People of the Night was of course a huge landmark for you and Antoine, but it seemed to be a pretty time-consuming one. Is there another album in it for you guys, or is one enough for the time being?
Oh man, you have no idea, man. That was something else. It's a tough decision to make an album. Like, especially when we decided to do it, it's kind of like, whatever, fuck it, let's do it. And it was a fun idea at the time, but then when you dive deep inside and you start really tweaking things and going through records and stuff, and the problem with making an album is that if I was to go ahead and do another album, I think it has to be that traditional approach how most other industries do it, like rock and stuff. You got to just go in there and finish it in like a month or so. Because if you start marinating it like what we did over time, your older records become irrelevant, and then it just becomes a mess, man, you know?
Now, let's talk about these infamous size studio sessions that have been cropping up across the globe, because it started in London, of course, and I was lucky enough to be only down the road and witness the madness firsthand. You've since expanded over to the US and had some quality studio time as a big unit in LA last year. Talk us through the experience of having the entire family in one place from a creative standpoint, and what the general mood was from the recent sessions. Was Mr. Angelo still cracking that whip pretty hard?
Yeah, I would say even more probably now, because I think last year was definitely for size. It was more of a, like you said, it was more of a touring year, and the touring was so heavy that we really just didn't have much time to get in the studio properly and stuff. And it was the same thing for Steve. And now that Steve is working on his album, when we were doing the sessions in LA, it was really back to basics, you know, just going back in and trying to figure out what we want to do next, and you know, start pumping out records again, which we haven't done in a while. And that's definitely would kind of, you know, encourage ourselves to get some fresh music out. And as I said, Steve is working on his album, so he has the similar goal for his own career, so he's definitely, you know, on the same page with us.
A lot of people would have us believe that this is one of the most saturated times for the big room house sound that there has ever been, and that there are quite simply too many new people trying to get in at the table. How far do you agree with this? And do you see any positive spins on the sheer volume of and the attention now available to artists?
Man, it's way too much. I mean, I welcome all of that talent. I mean, that's great. It keeps it a lot exciting. I just wish that there was a little bit more filtering going on in terms of the quality that people are putting out nowadays, because now it seems like people are just shitting on house music, you know what I mean? They're putting out this bullshit and feeding these records to the kids, and, you know, and like people that are new in this industry, they listen to it, they're like, oh yeah, is this, so this is the hot shit. If like, you know, if a DJ plays it at some huge festival, they think that this is what's got to be done, you know, and then you go to Beatport, you listen to that bullshit top 100, you know, and it's all the same shit.
So off the back of that, where do you think responsibility lies? Is this with the labels? Is this with the artists? Or are we just sort of an industry that's got a little bit over our heads with a certain comfort zone?
I don't think the industry needs to rethink anything. I think it's always been like that, you know. It's like a cycle of somebody coming in and doing something cool and different, and then it like catches on and everybody starts following that, and then they ride that wave, and as soon as the sound changes, people that can't adapt, they just fall off, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's a matter of, you know, down the line in like 10 years, you're just going to look at the guys who are still around and you're going to be like, okay, well, those are the guys that know what's going on, you know what I mean? It's like I always say, it's about staying relevant. It's important to know how to stay relevant. Those are the people that really survive in any industry. If you're the kind of guy that just goes in there and just copies whatever is currently working, you know, and then you're able to make a similar sound, as soon as something switches over to something else and you don't know how to make that sound, you become irrelevant, versus making sure that you create something of your own style. That I always try to make stuff where people copy me, you know, versus trying to copy other people. I think it's more interesting that way.
You're entering 2014 with a determined look on your face, to say the least. Talk us through what we can be expected from you in terms of studio offerings between now and Winter Music Conference, and in terms of the bigger picture, what aspirations do you hold for your career going forward?
Yeah, definitely. 2014 is big, man, because I have a lot of records that I already have lined up. You know, I have a record that is ready to go from Miami already. It's a big solo record with vocals. It's for me, 2014 is going to be a lot of solo work. So Antoine is going to be doing a lot of his stuff, and it's just about, you know, focusing on our individual careers, which is very important because we've been working together for such a long time. We want to show the world that what we can do on our own, you know, and it's a big step, and that's what we're doing.
Max, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for stopping by the House Dan Built Radio, and let's try and make it a little less than 5 years until we next catch up.
For sure, man. Awesome. Good luck with your show and everything.